Hi, everybody. Danny Bader here, and welcome to another episode of our Back to Life podcast. I'm excited for season 3. Our guest today is author David Greenwalt. He's a certified health coach and fitness expert. David's a husband, a father, former police officer, gym owner, competitive state-level bodybuilder, and powerlifter. And in 1997, at age 32 and a body weight of 235 pounds, David discovered an evidence-based approach for getting off his own excess 50 pounds and keeping it off for over 25 years and counting. Since 1999, through his company Leanness Lifestyle University, David has been helping people from every walk of life lose excess fat, keep the muscle, and manage this crazy life. So if you're somebody out there that says, yeah, I could stand to lose 10, 15, 20, 50 pounds, you're going to want to listen to this. If you're not, you may want to listen to it as well, because David's approach for weight loss and health can be applied to many other areas of your life to produce growth and fulfillment. So listen in and be sure to share with somebody that you think may be interested in this. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining. You heard in my intro about our guest, David Greenwalt today. So, David, tell us a little bit, how'd you get started in this? How'd you get to where you are right now?
Well, first, thanks so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So for whatever reason, I've had fitness in my DNA since I was a little kid. Don't ask me why. But when I was in grade school, I wanted that President's Council on Physical Fitness Award. We used to have that back then,
Sure.
Throw a baseball a certain distance, run a certain distance for a time, broad jump, these kinds of things. And I just wanted it. And don't ask me why. I'm 10, 11 years old, and
Yeah.
I wanted that. I wasn't overly athletic. I would have been the B team kid, maybe not C team, but not A team. I would have been the B team kid, but I wanted that. And so when it came to fitness, I was drawn to it. So I did get that a couple of years. I still have the patch and the certificate and the sticker and all that after all these years in a lockbox somewhere. But I went on in my senior year of high school, a friend who had been training really hard, had really created an amazing physique in bodybuilding, asked me if I wanted to go work out with them. And I hadn't worked out with weights consistently until then. Anyway, I did. Got into bodybuilding and powerlifting from my senior year of high school till my 20s and 30s and even early 40s. But back up just a little bit, because during the years that I was bodybuilding and powerlifting, my 20s and 30s, I was a police officer. And then I started as a city police officer, went on, became an Illinois state trooper. And right after I graduated from the academy, I was using basic supplements, and I thought I would start a mail order supplement company before the internet came here. Mm-hmm. And just so I could make enough money to pay for my own protein powder. And so I started in a tiny little room in a tiny little house that we owned back in 92. And in about 5 years, this company, I grew this company into about $5 million in revenue and 45 employees. So it grew way beyond what I thought it would. And I mention that because through that, I ended up with tens of thousands of customers, and I was still a state trooper. So wow. I finally cut the cord on the state trooper, even though I thought I would do that forever. I really have nothing but respect for it. I thought it was a great career, but yes. My passion being fitness, here I am, doing really well at the supplement company. But the internet came in. Email came in. What an amazing invention. There's two-way communication, Yeah. You can do something beyond snail mail. Yeah. And I started getting emails because people knew my background, get down to 5% body fat as a bodybuilder, bulk up to 235 pounds as a powerlifter, get down, get up, Mm-hmm. And so I got questions, and they were like, hey, Dave, if you could, real quick, just no big deal. Don't want to take too much of your time. It's not a big stretch, not a big ask. I just don't want to burden you too much. If you could just tell me how to lose 30 to 50 pounds and keep it off forever.
Yeah. Yes, just that, right, Dave?
Right.
Yeah.
If you could just answer that real quick in an email, I'd appreciate it. Thanks so much, for all your time and hard work and da.
Yes.
Well, I tried. And what I found is, of course, quickly, I'm in my very early 30s then. And what I found quickly was that I was doing them a huge disservice by just trying to do that back of the napkin bumper sticker answer,
sure,
which really wasn't going to do it.
Right.
But I've also found that I had an amazing passion for wanting to help people get from wherever they were, usually heavier, unhealthy, to someplace leaner and healthier.
Right.
And had much more of a passion for that than I did, the supplement business, even though it was doing well. And so I wrote a book because I didn't want to do this back in the napkin answer anymore. And it was almost 500 pages. And this was in 1998, 1999.
Yeah.
And again, Danny, the internet was here. It's amazing. You can put stuff on a web page.
Yeah.
So I created this coaching environment where I could have two-way communication, track nutrition and exercise and goal setting and all the stuff that was kind of the very early parts and pieces of coaching people through transformation online. An unheard of thing.
Yeah, sure.
Started that in 1999, sold the supplement business. So I didn't start this business when the supplement business was like on a downslide.
Right.
I started when it was like more at a peak.
Sure.
But I just was so passionate about this. I said, I'm going to go all in on Leanness Lifestyle University. That's the name of the company. And so we've been coaching people virtually and just continuing to refine, expand, and make it better. But we've been coaching people virtually since 1999. And here I am.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, first of all, thank you for your service in the law enforcement. We certainly appreciate that. And that's an interesting story, as you talked about, certainly building that company before the internet. And then this two-way communication, I think that's great. Tell us a little bit about, as I look around, I'm like you. I've always enjoyed fitness and doing our best to stay in shape. And I'll be 60 in November. So, feeling pretty good physically, a couple of aches and pains. And every now and again, my body will do something. I'm like, what was that? I never felt that before.
Right.
But tell me a little bit about, as I look around, I see an awful lot of people, especially, well, really not especially age-wise, but I just see an awful lot of people, as you said, that are not physically as fit maybe as they should be. And there's no judgment on my part there.
Sure.
What are some of the demographics in the US around, and what is obesity? How do we define obesity versus, well, yeah, I'm just a little overweight?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in the United States, we're sitting at about 43% obese. About 70% of adults are overweight. Wow. So you've got 70% overweight, 43% obese. That's today. In 1970, we were sitting at about 15% obesity. So it's a 2.5 time increase in obesity in the last 50 years.
50 years. How do you define obesity, though? What's the difference between I'm overweight and I'm obese?
Absolutely. So there is a mathematical, medically relevant determination there. It's a formula.
Right.
And what it is it's weight. If we're doing the American version, it's weight in pounds divided by height in inches squared times 703. And so it's a mathematical formula that comes up with something called the body mass index.
Sure, BMI.
A lot of people have heard of BMI, body mass index. And what it is, the definition is this, and I really look at it this way. I don't look at it from I think this person is ugly, like that's an adjective. If I say someone is obese, I'm in my head going 30 BMI or higher. So what's overweight? Overweight by BMI is 25 or greater, okay? But specifically until it hits obesity, it's 25 to 29.9. Obesity kicks in with a BMI of 30 or greater. And then there are at least three classifications of obesity, depending on what you look at. Class 1 obesity is 30 to 34.9. Class 2 obesity, 35 to 39.9. And class 3 obesity, or what's called morbidly obese, is 40 plus. And so it's all a mathematical formula. Anybody can Google what's my BMI, and you can see where you are. And it generally across the board, it isn't perfect because it doesn't take into account muscle mass, which could be. But here's the deal: there might be 3 to 5%, maybe of the population where having a lot of muscle is going to impact the BMI in a negative way. But it's still, someone could still be lean but have a lot of muscle and weigh a lot. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But for the most part, that's not a factor.
Yeah. Great, man. Good history. So let's get into it for the people that are listening. And I know, some of the people that I coach as well, fitness is certainly a part of that. What about the people out there? That question the email people would say to you, hey, Dave, when you get 2 or 3 minutes, let me know how to take 30, 40, 50 pounds off and keep it off forever. And I know that's not a back of the envelope answer. So talk a little bit about that. What somebody that's listening right now says, I need to lose 15, 20, 50 pounds.
Right.
What are your thoughts? What are your steps? What are you saying to them right now?
So we want to meet the person where they are. It could be someone who's already doing a number of things correctly. We want to kind of do an analysis, a determination. kind of where they are, what they're doing with regard to at least the nutrition and exercise components. All right, do that initial evaluation.
Okay.
It could be somebody with truly good basic knowledge of nutrition, but isn't implementing as much as they would like or need to. And it also could be somebody who's very misinformed, really doesn't know much about nutrition, doesn't really know. And so we have to kind of look at that. Exercise wise, it could be somebody that's running 5 miles a week, or 5 miles a day, 3 days a week, and doing weight training 3 days a week. They're already doing that.
Yep.
And it also could be someone who hasn't done anything really in 10 years. So we want to meet the person where they are and not try to do a cookie cutter thing. Now, with that said, we do have a nutrition framework, of course. We have to, because we can't just 100% make it absolutely 100% individual for every single person that comes through the door. There has to be a framework, a basis, if you will, for people to look to. But then we tailor it depending on what they need, depending on where they are. So we look at those two things first. So I go to, initially, Danny, people come to me, their thinking is, I know what to do, I just need to do it. Now, that may not be wholly true, but when they say I know what to do, if they do, I know what to do it, they're talking about, I know I need to eat better.
Right.
I know I need to exercise more.
Right.
But for most people, that's where it stops.
Yeah. And there's so much ambiguity there, right? They don't define what that looks like. They don't put the plan to it. Yeah.
And most people are really misinformed about what that even means. It's like, what's healthy? What's good nutrition? What's this? So we come at, we're going to teach an evidence-based model and a combination of evidence and experience. There's a science and an art to this, because not every single thing that applies to people in the real world in this space has been published in a peer-reviewed journal. We draw a lot of strength. I draw a lot of strength from an evidence-based approach to give the basis. There's an art to it as well. So we're going to teach people what's really going on nutritionally, what's really important there. We're going to at least look at where they are exercise-wise and get a basic plan so that we've got some movement. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And ideally, we'll have some kind of combination of cardio and strength, but we're going to make sure that it fits them and their schedule and their abilities and limitations and all that. All right. Once we've got that, which is where most people think that's where it begins and ends, right? Just give me my 7-day diet and exercise plan, a little accountability, and I'll be on my way. Thanks so much. So that
now before we go in, before we get into that, and we're going to talk about where people can find you, because your program is, as I checked it out, it looks amazing with tremendous success. And I always say to people, there's every reason that 6 months from now you can be down 20 pounds, down 30 pounds, heart rate, blood, anything, and there's every reason that they won't be. So we'll certainly give everybody your information, and I suspect a lot of listeners will get in touch. What if it's somebody that says, I don't want to go with somebody, I don't have the money for that. What would you say, just for them to go do some research on the web and get some free information, maybe?
Well, I mean, it's a minefield.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying someone can't, but the time and trying to sift and sort here, let me put it in my perspective, running a business. Okay?
Absolutely.
I'm always, not always, but as a health coach, I got it. I feel strong. I feel confident. I've been doing this for over 30 years, 23 years online.
Yep.
I feel very confident in this space. When it comes to marketing or maybe some business aspect or maybe some new social media thing or whatever, don't have the confidence like I do being a health coach. So for me, if you say to me, well, Dave, what do you think? Just go Google, find me a good social media coach.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once you've done that search, then you got about 400 things coming at you every day, right? Because all the cookies have landed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there's somebodies out there that are legit and good and solid and care and want to take care of the people that come in social media in this space, where my space, health coaching, transformation.
Sure.
And there are others that are like, dude, it's a side hustle. I'm a great marketer. It's a side hustle. I sound really good, but my information's really poor.
I got it. Yeah. And I hear you. And if people are, if they're 20, 30, 40 pounds overweight and more, they need support. One of the principles that I talk about is to seek support. It's so important to ask for help. And so I'm with you. Cool. I'm with you. So then once
my thing is, look, if you can do it on your own, great.
Right.
Seriously.
Sure.
But it's the people that come to me have been frustrated for more than a year. Most of them 5-10 years.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because whether they have 10 or 15 pounds to lose or they've got 150, they haven't progressed like they hoped they would, or they got down to a place and they've come back up.
Sure. That whole yo-yo thing, right? Put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off. All right, cool. So you meet them where they are. And then what's the step to kind of get them rolling, build some momentum? What's that look like?
So then once they really do know what to do nutritionally and exercise wise, all right, we can direct energy expenditure and energy input through those two components. The inputs of the eating and drinking and the outputs of the exercise and the daily activity. Great. So we've got our energy expenditure and our energy inputs taken care of. And if we really do know, because let's say we've educated them, we know that we're confident, they know, they really do know, they've got the good solid information. So let's say at this point, they really do know what to do, nutrition and exercise wise. Then it becomes, how can we get them to do it consistently? And so this is where the rubber meets the road stuff. This is the stuff that separates, to me, the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. And so for us, we're going to look at what's really driving their willpower, which is why power. What's their why? Yeah. And it's not just, just, find out why, somebody wants to do it. We really want to make sure we address that at the level of importance that it deserves. Because here's the thing. In our obesogenic society, which just basically means, obesogenics, just all the external and internal factors that contribute to behaviors that support obesity. Okay. Right? Everything from advertising to the availability and cheapness of fast food and convenience food, 24/7 access, social environments, all the factors that contribute to behaviors that support obesity is obesogenic. And we live in an incredibly obesogenic environment. With that being said, there are so many forces externally coming at us, plus we've got internal things that we're dealing with. It could be from past trauma, it could be just from habit, it could just be a number of things, misconceptions, a misunderstanding. We need a why that is incredibly strong, because it's why power driving willpower. A lot of people will think, I don't have willpower. But they do, because every single person listening to this has accomplished something hard that took a long time. Right. How do you define willpower? My definition of willpower is the ability to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And so you think then the purpose drives that, right? That gets your ass out of bed at 5:30 when you don't feel like getting your ass out of bed at 5:30. Yes. Right. So you have to be much more aware, right? Not conscious. We're all conscious. Awareness is that deeper energy inside, right? Spirit. So that you really get these folks to stay very aware of why we're doing this. And that's a key driver. Yeah, I think so too. It's for sure a key driver, and there's plenty of evidence to support that. I mean, you just ask somebody that works for somebody else, when was the last time you were late for work? Yeah. It's just almost never. Yeah. Why? Because you love your job so much, you just couldn't stand to bear without it. Yeah. Because you're always in a good mood before work, because you're never tired, because you didn't have 3 hours of sleep last night and the kids weren't crying and you didn't get an argument with a spouse. You just go, everything's great. Are you kidding me? Right. Yeah. But you go into work because the why for going in, the why for having the job, the why for all the things you get for doing what you do is so incredibly strong. You will do it no matter what. You will do it. Just, I love it. I love it. Yep. I'm with you, man. I am with you. So what are some of the most powerful whys that and I know they're all individual, right? Yeah, they are. And I would guess that there's some consistency among them for individuals. So what are top 3 or 4 whys that you've seen people really cultivate, become aware of, internalize, that drives them to a lot of success with their health? So much of it is, I mean, some people will at least incorporate into the why something health related. Although I will say that let's get it in there. That's fine. But most times that's not a big driver. And the reason for that is it's usually related to something in the future, something way down the line. I want to prevent illness when I'm in my 80s or whatever, and the person's 45. Right. That's a long ways away. And we get it. It's important, but it doesn't have that why right now. But anyway, it's in there. So health related things are in there. Relationship related things can be in there. I want to look good. I want to look great naked. I want to be able to leave the lights on. Yeah. Those kinds of things are in there. Another thing is that I want to be a good example for my kids. I want to be a good example for my patients, like professionals that are medical professionals or health professionals or whatever, they suffer just as much as anybody else when it comes to, struggling in this obesogenic environment. So
Oh yeah, sure.
people that are leaders in their organization of any kind, they want to lead from the front. So they want to be a good example. They want to be taken seriously. Those things are a lot of times brought into the why.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to play with kids and grandkids and making sure they can.
Yeah.
I'm 45 and I plan to have grandkids when I'm 60 or whatever, let's say somebody says, and I want to make sure I can get down on the floor and get back up, because right now I'm 350 pounds and that's not going to work.
Yeah. I hear it. Yeah, I've heard that one a lot of times.
Right.
I want to see my kids get married. I want to grow. Yeah, that's a good, yeah. Yeah, I do.
And so
that's
those
the
are kind of some of the
relationships.
things I have found that kind of three main areas kind of seem to rise to the top. Although it really does vary. I've seen whys that are 3 sentences and super powerful for the person.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen whys that are, a page and a half, single spaced, 5-point font. And that's what they needed. That's what they needed to have. Each person writes their own why. They're the author of their story there.
Sure, absolutely.
And so, but I will say that it kind of comes down to feelings, freedoms, and aspirations is generally what it comes down to. And that feeling, what I mean is they want to feel more confident. They want to feel more pride. They want to feel as though they're noticed. They don't want to feel invisible. They want to feel like the public and whatnot can actually see them. And then with freedoms, they want the freedom. People socially isolate a lot when they aren't feeling as good as they'd like about themselves, especially once they get a lot of times to a certain size and what have you. It doesn't have to be big even. It just can be very individual.
Yeah.
But
it's just in their mind, right? It's how they see
they
themselves.
Want the freedom to be able to go out and be a part of society more and enjoy more social events and do things like that. And the freedom to go and do anything they want to do without any self-imposed fear of judgment, and also literally fitting in. I'll get people that'll say, I want to be able to sit in a plane seat comfortably. So it really varies. But anyway, you get feelings, freedoms, and aspirations. And aspirations can be things like, I want to hike the Appalachian. I want to do this. I want to hike this thing. I want to walk this. I want to be able to travel here. I want to be able to, do maybe the bigger things that are kind of exciting.
Right. And they need some physical growth for that. Yeah. Growing stronger. That's cool. How do you use any visualization with these folks in terms of here's where you are right now? See yourself working, see yourself eating healthier. I think a visualization for me is very powerful in all places of life. You talked about our story, right? Because I believe when you tell your brain a story about anything, about the day, about the week, about a meal that you're going to eat, the brain really wants to make that real, right?
Yeah.
We imagine it, and then it's like, okay, this imagination needs to be real. How do you use that in your work?
So we're really, really big on focus on what you want, not on what you fear or don't want. Whatever you focus on grows. So, and so
I love that. Yep.
Putting that focus on the positive while acknowledging the negative. So we're gonna just as, again, if we just stay for the why for just a second, that, by the way, that's not the only other thing we do that drives the nutrition and exercise behaviors. But if we're on the why, we're going to keep that why positively focused while making sure that we honor kind of the subconscious without the subconscious calling bullshit and going, nope, I'm sorry, I got to call BS on you on that, because that's not true. We can satisfy the subconscious, meaning we can satisfy the truth, I'm throwing that in quotes, of the negative while keeping it positively focused. So that's where that focus on what you want, not on what you fear or don't want. So when we find that when someone's writing something in their why and they're writing it from that perspective of what they want, they'll say, I don't want to feel bad anymore.
Right.
Well, that's what you don't want. And we get it. Let's honor that. Let's acknowledge that it feels bad, everything hurts, or whatever the case is.
Right. So
I'll ask them, what's the opposite of feel bad? Literal opposite of feel bad. And they'll say, feel good. I said, okay. So then let's reword it.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Let's reword it. Yep. I said, your subconscious is going to get it. It knows what you mean when you say that. But when you read it, it's a lot more uplifting.
Yeah.
Compared to just kind of, you read something, you can, when people are left to do this on their own, a lot of times you'll read their why initially and you just feel like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
Sucks the life out of you.
Yeah.
So we get it so that they've got it so that for them, as they read it, they're like, man, I'm empowered. I feel fired up.
Yep.
I feel like I've got the strength to get up at, like you said, 5 a.m. and do my thing or prep my foods or whatever I've got to do.
Sure.
I can face the day and make a better decision with this.
Yeah. So the why has to be emotionally, it's got to put them in that good feeling state, because that's what drives action, right?
Yes.
I mean, all of us know that. You're going to act more time. I mean, if you acted from logic, our obesity would probably be back down around 8%, right?
Absolutely.
If we acted from logic, right? When nobody we our debt would be under control.
Right.
And yeah. So that's cool. Yeah. So I remember Lizzie, our daughter. We have 3 kids, Luke, Joey, and Lizzie. And Lizzie was a gymnast all for, growing up, and then is a runner now in college, and the boys are healthy, and my wife Lisa swims and all. It's cool. But I remember Lizzie when she was on the balance beam, those little girls on that 4-inch beam, right? And they're just learning, and they would start to kind of lose their balance and arms flailing and everything. The coaches would always say to them, tighten your core, right? Tighten your core, because that's going to bring you back to center, and or stay on the beam. Stay on the beam, stay on the beam, stay on the beam. They never said don't fall.
Right.
Right. And people will go, well, that's the same thing. I'm like, no, it isn't, man. Because if the brain's here and fall, if the brain's here, and that's great. Yeah, you and I are on the same page for sure. I mean, I knew that when we connected not too long ago. So we get a really strong why. We get a positive focus on the why. You get them to write it somewhere. I'm sure sometimes people would like to record it on the phone so they can hear it. Sure. All those things, right? That's, the brain is the hardware, and then what we're putting in is the software, right? Yes. That's the program. All right, cool. So keep going. Tell us what's after the why.
So we're going to look at the why, make sure it's a living document, always in progress. Mm-hmm. Things get deleted, it gets edited, things get added to it, things get tweaked. We always want it to be relevant and current for the current time and where you're at and where you're going.
Great.
And a lot of times what I see with clients too, and I'll just mention this, what the heck we're talking about this.
Sure.
The client's got 70 pounds to lose. They lose 45 or 50. The why that's going to be needed to lose the last 20 pounds is going to be different than the first 50.
Amen. Right.
All right. So it's a living document. My other point is we just keep going. All right. Another thing that has to be looked at, which is undervalued, underappreciated, underrecognized, is the fact that ultra-processed foods can be addictive for a lot of people. So not real food, but processed and ultra-processed foods are. No one's addicted to chicken breast and broccoli.
Right.
No one. Not one person is addicted to chicken breast and broccoli. All right. But it's all the ultra-processed stuff. It's all your chips and your cookies and your cakes and your pastries and your da-da-da-da-da, all the stuff, whatever.
Got it.
All the ultra-processed foods. And that...
anything in a box or package or wrapping, right?
Well, yeah. And it's, and that's a minefield until you understand and separating your head. Like in my head, I think real food and ultra-processed. So when I see something, it doesn't mean that I never have ultra-processed. And our mission with our students and clients is not to get them to zero ultra-processed, because that's not going to happen in our modern environment.
Right.
But where we are is adults are consuming 60 to 90% of what they consume as ultra-processed.
Oh, man.
Right. So what's happened is ultra-processed has crowded out real food over the last 100 years.
Yeah.
We want to slowly, or not, whatever the client is comfortable with, we want to help them move more toward crowding out the ultra-processed with real food. So, and having an awareness that if they are a triggered eater and they are on this continuum of user, abuser, addict, wherever they are on the continuum, we've got to help them figure out in what situation, at what time, in what way, in what place, with what ultra-processed food is it the problem. There's this thing that's been pitched, and it's one of the reasons we are where we are, Danny, in society with regard to obesity, and it's moderation in all things. Well, I'm a fan of moderation, but here's how I feel about moderation in all things. Moderation in all things, including moderation.
Right.
Sometimes for a person, we need to look at a situation, a time, a place, an emotional event, and the specific ultra-processed food itself. Sometimes 0 is better than 1.
Yeah.
You wouldn't tell an alcoholic moderation in all things.
No.
You wouldn't tell a nicotine addict, a coke addict, a crack addict. You wouldn't tell him that moderation in all things.
Sure. No. Yeah. No. None.
It doesn't make any sense. What people get confused with food, in quotes, is everybody's got to eat. I mean, how can you possibly know what you might have to, in some way, shape, or form, abstain from? Well, it's not as hard as some people make it. It's hard when people in dietetics lump everything in as just food.
Right.
If you separate real food from ultra processed food, it gets real easy. Happy to give a definition of real food if you think it'd be helpful.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So real food, this is my working definition. Okay. I've adapted it from a food classification system called Nova Food Classification. My working definition is this: real food, whole or minimally processed edible parts of plant and animal. With me so far? Right? Whole or minimally processed edible parts of plant and animal, where if anything is added to it, it's whole or minimally processed ingredients commonly found in kitchens.
Got it.
It's a long way to say it, but if you think about it, what are we talking about? We're talking about single ingredient plant and animal substances.
Yep.
Where it's the things that have been added to it are spices, vinegars, oils. There might be, flour that you might have had at home. There might be sugar that you might have had at home. And I'm not saying those are perfect, but I'm saying that when it's only ingredients commonly found in kitchens,
right,
and those ingredients specifically are whole or minimally processed, we've got real food.
That education has to be great for people, that are struggling, that don't have that, just that education on food is for many of them an eye opener, I'll bet.
It is, because they're also confused too, which is why you go around and you say, well, can't you just Google this? You can, but you're going to find somebody to say, listen, the way you tell if it's real food is if it's got more than 5 ingredients. More than 5 ingredients, don't eat it. I don't care if it's got 50 ingredients, as long as they fit.
Yeah, right.
What if something has 20 different spices in it? Fine with me.
Yeah.
More than 5 ingredients. You get them a marinara sauce that's tomatoes, basil, oregano, garlic, salt.
Sure.
Right? That's all good.
And it's a good sauce,
and it's good. So and some people will say too, don't eat it if you can't pronounce it. Well, I don't know what you can pronounce. Quinoa is kind of a weird word.
Yeah. And quinoa is pretty good.
And quinoa is pretty good. And then again, I've had people say, I have an incredible vocabulary.
Yeah.
They can probably pronounce some of these, any of the 3,000 industrial.
Guacamole is a crazy word, and I like my guac.
Exactly. So if we look at real food, we say you're not going to be addicted to real food, in its most kind of pure form. It's always the ultra processed. Then we can begin to not, let's say, we're going to eliminate anything that ever tasted good. No, it's about, we may have to look at a specific instance, time of day, place, emotional event, some trigger event, plus when people do overeat compulsively ultra processed foods, it's not 100 different foods. It's 5.
Yeah, they're going to the same ones probably, right?
They're going to the same ones at the same time of day in the same way. It's a very conditioned automated response where it's like a light switch.
Yeah.
Right? And so here's the thing. That's not like eye color. It isn't something that can't be changed. It can be taught. It can be separated, meaning that the stimulus and the response there can be a space between there so that we can make that
now you're
decision.
talking. Yes, Dr. Viktor Frankl talks about stimulus and response in the space, right?
I love Dr. Viktor Frankl's, quote on that. Between the stimulus and the response is the space, and within that space we retain the right to be able to choose our response.
Man. It's a slide in almost every one of my talks and presentations.
How could it?
There it is, man. Search for meaning right here.
Yeah, exactly.
And we recently downsized. I got rid of a lot of books, and I did not get rid of that one, brother.
You know what?
That's great. So you really work with people to understand that space.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you encourage them any type of meditation or stillness or anything through this process?
Yep. Let's go to that third piece of this puzzle after we're done with nutrition and exercise. So we did why a little bit.
Yep.
We did addiction or, substance abuse kind of thing. Let's look at this for what it is.
Right.
Let's get real, that moderation in all things, including moderation. All right.
Yep.
And let's keep everything we can. Let's be real. And let's try to shift toward real food. Got it.
Love it.
Now we're going to come over to the emotional fitness leg, which is very multifaceted as well. And that's where I'm going to bring in mindfulness, meditation, all the things. In emotional fitness, the way I look at it is emotional fitness is about feeling authentically good more often. Let me just for a difference, we can feel regretfully good by eating 1,000 calories of donuts. And in that 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes that it took us to do that, we feel good. But we just almost invariably regret it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's regret. We can go on a $1,000 shopping spree because we're still just trying to find an outlet, retail therapy, we call it.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
can go out and spend $1,000 you don't have, and it feels good in the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And you get back and see this credit card statement, and you're like, oh my
Oh,
God.
yeah. The dopamine's firing out of your head, right? And then you're like, holy shit, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah.
Right. And so it's regretfully good. So with emotional fitness, we want to grow the inside, as we say, so that they can feel more authentically good more often. And also so that they have greater self-regulation and ability to manage life, so that when the anxiety driving event occurs, when the stressful event occurs, or the celebratory event, or whatever it is, they can keep their executive function in the front of their brain functioning just enough to, first of all, let's bring the temperature down of the emotion of the discussion. Let's reduce catastrophics. Whatever's going on, you could say you had an argument with a spouse or whatever.
Sure.
Is it really the end of the world?
Right.
Is your life really over because you just had a little disagreement?
Yeah.
Your head can spin that up so fast.
Oh, sure.
In anything like that, whatever your thing is, you can spin it up so fast and go catastrophic that, you know what, even though you know that eating the donuts, whatever it is, even though you know the outcome from that is going to stink, in the moment, you just feel like it's a must, because the feeling that you've spun up,
right,
uncontrollably, so to speak, is so high that the escape is still worth it, even though the outcome's going to stink.
Yeah. So
we want to just work on that emotional fitness, a very multifaceted category, so that people are better life managers. I kind of refer to it as becoming a lifestyle ninja.
Yeah.
Right. So that you can just handle whatever comes at you. You're like, I've got this tool for that.
Sure.
I have this coping mechanism for that. I have this thought process for that. And you can draw on them quickly, and you can here's the thing. You're still going to feel it. You're still going to be upset.
Right.
You're still going to have all the emotions. No one's going to get turned into a robot here.
Sure.
But instead of it getting to such a heightened state where you feel that need to zone out, escape, I need relief, between that stimulus and the response, you can at least see the gap.
Yeah.
And in that space, it's not just a Frankel quote. In that space, you can go, okay, bring it down. It's all right.
Yep.
Okay. This is going to, let's listen, not,
yeah.
Instead of it's horrible, terrible, awful nightmare.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Name it.
It's so key. Yeah. I often talk to people. I say, it's not about not having negative thoughts, it's about not letting them win.
Yes. So
again, just like you're talking now, Dave, how do I acknowledge, name this thing or something? My fourth book, Taking the SHIT Out of the Show, is all about that. How do I name these thoughts so I become much more conscious? And as you said, reframe them. Is this really the end of the world? And so many times we manifest bad things that are going to happen. I had a wonderful therapist one time that told me, she talked about probable and possible. So just stop and say, okay, is this possible? This outcome that I'm fixated on, that's good, is it? Yeah, it's possible. Is it probable? And just that conversation, sometimes you go, probably not.
Probably not.
You have a very small likelihood. So it's just that whole shift. So yeah, I imagine that this part, the emotional fitness, and I love that term when I saw it, is a big part of this work, right?
Huge.
Once you've laid that foundation of, meet you where you are, let me find out what your why is. Let's get some education around food, and some knowing around food. Yeah. And that all ties to the new habits then, right?
It does. And, and creating the new habits, again, it's a mix, it doesn't fit into perfectly one category, but it again is going to fit kind of more so on that emotional fitness side of things, and just kind of being aware. We do we're not psychologists, but it doesn't mean that we can't embrace a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy,
Sure.
Where, part of that is something they have, it's called an ABC, and we have that available right on our, secure online campus, where if an off-plan event occurs, we can analyze it. What's the antecedent? What was the lead up to it? What was going on? Because I don't care who it is. I don't care how long and how hard someone may have struggled. They don't stink at everything.
Right.
they don't stink at most things.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is in this area, because here's what I find is the overwhelming majority of my clients are successful in their career. They're successful in the home life. They've got a good life, a good home, good work, good education, good family. Things are really going well in a number of areas. Not that people don't have life stressors and everything going on like we all do.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they've got their act together.
Yeah.
So when I say they don't stink at everything, what I'm specifically talking about in the area of transformation, exercise, nutrition, and kind of all the lifestyle things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 20% or so. And so when we look at, cognitive behavioral therapy, and we look at the antecedent, what was the trigger for this? What was the thing?
Right.
Then what was the behavior? What'd you do? What exactly did you do? What did you do? And then the C is consequence.
Yeah.
And the consequences are both positive and negative. They're not just negative. Because if there wasn't a positive consequence to it, we wouldn't have it as a repeated behavior.
Yeah. That's a great framework. I've heard a version of that before. Again, and that's great that you're just, you're educating people, that you kind of take them off that automatic pilot, right? That was a basal ganglia, part of our brain that's just, here we go. We're thinking negative. We're eating like this. We go, we go to the gym for 3 days. We look in the mirror. We're going, this ain't working. We're back to eating it. It's just that vicious loop that so many people get caught in, man. That sounds great. I mean, your work sounds amazing. Before we, I certainly appreciate you being on here. I think we'll get some great feedback. Before we kind of wrap up and tell people, where to find you and kind of contact you if the spirit moves them. 2 things. Is there any component of faith, spirituality, belief in your work?
Yeah. I appreciate that. Anybody that's been with me a while, knows I define myself as a humble agnostic.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it, and I really mean that. Like, I tell people, all the time that when it comes to faith, if you are a person of faith, of a person with a religious background, perspective, or however you want to word it, I'm always like, lean into that. And one of the things I have said, Danny, is I've said, one of the advantages I see for those that are devout in belief is they have an advantage. They have an advantage over someone like me. And I want them to embrace that. And that advantage that I'm talking about there is that you're never alone.
Right.
And so I don't know that I can say that. What I'll say is I have a saying that is kind of my keep sanity out of what otherwise would be insanity of of the world. But I'm very very big on supporting people with their faith and making sure that if they are, my gosh, please lean into it, use it, do everything you can, ask for help, and let's employ it every single chance we can, because faith is important.
Cool.
For me, my saying for me is everything's happening perfectly, even though I don't understand why right now. And the reason I phrase it that way, I was given that statement by someone else, and I'll give the name in just a moment, but it was an author of a book, and Susan Jeffers, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I didn't think about it for a second. I interviewed her 20 years ago, but she wrote a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's a great book.
Love that.
And while she was on my call, she said, "It's all happening perfectly, David." And I was like, what do you mean? And anyway, we chatted about it a little bit, and then I had to add my part. And that was even though I don't understand why right now. And for me, what that means for me is it's a humility statement that I'm just a human being. And I can't possibly know all that ever was, is, or will be.
Sure.
And so it's okay. I have to make it okay for myself that I don't understand why very bad things happen to good people, or why the world is doing a certain thing, or why this is happening or that's happening.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't say that where everything in my life has just been roses and sunshine. I've experienced tragedy and loss and death and,
Yeah.
a number of things. And not to compare anything that I've been through compared to horrific things that others have.
Right.
But I've suffered and grieved. And even so, I come out of it and say, it's all happening perfectly.
Yeah.
Even though I don't understand why right now. But that's where I sit with it.
Nice. Good. Cool. What's the, real quick, what's the greatest, and you probably have a ton of them, but what's one that comes to mind, greatest success story where somebody has finally said, all right, I got this, and they go off on a wonderful journey and get tremendously more healthy? You got a story?
I've got current students that they would fit the bill. There's you figure in 20 some years, there's so many. It's really
that's
hard.
what I'm saying.
I will say that I'll say that a fun one, which I didn't know at first, is someone came to me. I had no idea what her mindset was.
Mm-hmm.
She came to me 150 pounds overweight.
Mm-hmm.
She came to me to prove me wrong. I had no idea. But meaning, like, she's like, nothing else has ever worked for me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I hear what Dave is saying. He sounds like he's a nice guy, maybe credible and all this,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing else has ever worked. So I'm going to prove that his thing won't work for me either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so she came in but she did a really cool thing again that I didn't know till later. Right. She didn't tell me any of this up front. It was only after, but she said in her mind, she said to herself, which just says a lot about her character. She goes, if I'm going to do this and prove him wrong, I got to do what he says. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, sure. If I don't do what he says, then I can't say
it's not valid.
I need to really be able to say, it's important to me that I can say he was wrong.
Right.
And it's like, you talk about a focus on the wrong thing, but anyway, sometimes life doesn't fit neatly in a box. It's not clean.
Very rarely. So what happened with her?
So she went through, an initial 18-week period, lost 60, 70 pounds in that period, did really well. But during that period, she lost her father. And that's a real tenuous situation, real touchy when someone is working hard, doing the work, trying to learn, how to grow emotionally, trying to apply why and all these things coming in, and then doing the work, doing the work of the nutrition and exercise when it isn't, in your DNA to be a fitness oriented person,
Right.
And so I knew it could go either way. And I've seen it go the wrong way, meaning the person checks out. They're like, I can't do this right now. And I got it. But she didn't. She meant to prove me wrong. And she stayed and did the work. And we did, all of us, my coaches, myself, of course, very sincerely empathetic toward her situation, brought all the temperature and intensity down. Not that it was crazy high, but just brought everything down, just, took the pressure off of her. She stayed in, she did the work. She lost 60, 70 in the first 18-week cohort. She lost the rest of the next cohort, and she's maintained it. And I just think that's a fun story.
That's a great story.
Just from that perspective, it just sticks in my mind. But some of the changes that people say to me, I honestly, Danny, I still look to the ground.
Yeah.
I look to the ground because I just feel like what they've experienced and they'll express to me on what it's meant to their life. I just still don't feel like I'm worthy to hear it, even though, I don't know. It's just really humbling. But it's also why I felt so strong, when I had that supplement business, and I said, I just love helping people.
Yeah. That's obvious. That is obvious. Where can people find you? What's the best place to go get some more information, or have a kind of intro call with you or one of your coaches?
You bet. Let's just keep it real simple. Anything that anybody would need will be at LLUniversity.com.
LL, two L's, university spelled out.com.
Yep. LLUniversity.com. Yep.
You got it. You got it. Well, anybody out there listening right now that has been on this journey of health and weight loss and those things, and you can see listening to Dave, it's more weight loss is the outcome. And I think there's some other outcomes attached to that where he talked about the why. So, check it out. And Dave, listen, thank you very much. I enjoy it. You're doing wonderful work. People certainly need you and your coaches and your team, to support them. So those of you out there, take a look. And Dave, I wish you all the best. And thanks for being a guest. And everybody, until our next episode of our Back to Life podcast, make sure that each day when you have the gift of coming back to life, you're focused on creating much more inspiration, much more fulfillment, and the much needed resilience during the tough times. All right, peace. Dave, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Well, didn't I tell you that was going to be a good episode? You know, when I do my vision work with people and I get them to identify what area of their life they really want to focus on, one of the top two is almost always health. And I think it was great how Dave broke down his approach, which is very, as he said, evidence-based, scientific, and it's got steps to it to support people in losing the weight, building muscle, and keeping the weight off. I loved his conversation around you need to meet them where they are and find their why. What is their why? What is their purpose? That's what's going to drive them and keep them engaged. I love when he talked about food addiction and the need to educate people on food and the difference between real food and the processed food. He had great talk around vision and mindset and building new habits and willpower. I think you'll really enjoy that. And I loved when he talked about the ABC model. I'm not going to tell you what A stands for. You'll have to listen in. The B is the behavior and the C is the consequence. So the behavior happens because of A, and C, the consequence occurs, right, because of A and B. So take a listen. I am certain that you are going to find some things that will help you to get more healthy and to stay healthy. And some of you probably will even want to get in touch with Dave and his wonderful team there. Take care until next time. Stay fulfilled, stay focused, and always build resilience. Peace.